Hello and welcome back to All for United. We've got a very, very special episode for you today. I don't think I've been this excited for an episode in a long, long time. We've got a very special guest and we're going to be talking about a very, very special player. Don't you worry about that. Cristiano Ronaldo is back and we want to know exactly the sort of player that we are getting. Obviously, we saw him 12 years ago, just before he was at the peak of his powers. He's now maybe past his peak, but he's by no means finished. Don't you believe me? I say I've got a very special guest for you who I'm going to introduce straight after this.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
And here we have it. I'm joined by Marco from Italian Football TV. He's also a Serie A analyst on CBS, I believe. That's right. So, Marco, it's brilliant to have you on. How are you doing?
No, James, thank you for having me. I know we were talking a little bit before. You should be excited. You should be excited with Ronaldo. I'm happy for you guys. I've been very lucky to have watched him extremely closely in the last couple of years of having him in Serie A and having him with Juventus. So I'm happy to be able to share my experience of how amazing he truly was in Italy.
That's a positive start. Probably the perfect start we could have asked for. So thank you for that.
Of course.
While we've got a lot of viewers, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe and get your comments in as well. We'll try and ask Marco as many of your questions as we can, as well as the ones I've got planned, of course. But we'll start in your specialty area then. We'll start at his time at Juventus. The first question I wanted to ask was, we don't get to see much of him at Juventus, but how did he do in a general scheme last season? How did he do at Juventus?
He was unbelievable. He was as good as you could possibly be. The guy was unbelievable. He scored 101 goals in 134 games, if I'm not mistaken. He was the Serie A capocannoniere, which is the top goal scorer in Italy with 29 goals. And he did all of that with Juventus not even winning, with barely qualifying on the final day, the final match day. And going through, if you realize Ronaldo had to go through 3 different coaches at his time at Juventus, with a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that were interlocking and changing, and he just did an incredible job for what he was given.
Sorry, I forgot where the mute button was then. That's definitely promising then. As I was explaining to you before the show started, he sort of had a bit of a negative twist in the press on his return, in that, the Lukaku won the Player of the Year award in the league, didn't he, despite not scoring as many and starting more games. So it's definitely nice to hear someone who actually watched him give him a lot of praise. But my next question I wanted to pose to you is, what sort of system last season were Juventus playing in? What was his role in that team, and how was the team set up around him?
Yeah, just to hit on the Lukaku point, this is not taking away from Lukaku at all, because Lukaku was phenomenal last year, but he also had a very good team around him, and he had a really good system around him, which definitely helped Lukaku to exceed and excel in his max potential. And you could argue that at Juventus, Ronaldo didn't have that same sort of service, especially in the final year. Ronaldo last year with Andrea Pirlo, who was the first time that he ever coached a team that never even coached 8-year-olds before, let alone a professional team. And Ronaldo was obviously the key in the center, as Ronaldo must be for any team that he's in. He wants the ball. He was just inside the box. He's a goal-scoring animal and machine. He loves to just stay centered, stay in that position, and accept any ball that comes in, and whether it's with his head, where he really excelled at Juventus, or with his feet. He played it very similar to how he did for his 3 years. When you coach Juventus, you have to accept that this guy is going to be that Ronaldo. When you have Ronaldo in your team, he's your center. He's your focal point. He's the guy that you look for in the center of the box. You play him where he wants to, because he's going to put the ball into the back of the net 90% of the times. So he was fantastic in that regard, and he was the center of Andrea Pirlo's play most of the time at Juventus last year.
But you'd certainly expect that when you were a player of his caliber. But a question that we've had in sort of before the show from a couple of the fans, from Rushan and Waz, I hope I'm pronouncing that first name right, but it was sort of along the lines of what sort of connections he made within the team. Who did he link up best with and what were their sort of playing styles, just so we can relate that over to how he might connect with some of the United players.
Yeah, so in the beginning, when everyone went crazy with Dybala, Ronaldo, Dibaldo as we called them during their time, and at one point, Dybala and Ronaldo, they were in like the top 5 for most goals and assists in all of Europe. Behind Lewandowski and behind some like the other best duos in the world. Last year, Dybala, he had a lot of problems he had COVID. He had injuries. He struggled. So that link up was never really there. And Ronaldo was constantly having to link up with someone new. So he was never having that same continuity with the same sort of players. And he never had that sort of relationship. His best time was the link up between Dybala and Ronaldo. Those were the two guys that, Dybala's got high football IQ. Him and Ronaldo built off of each other. They loved to play together. They played off of each other extremely well. That was the best duo. The only reason why you can't completely say that is because Dybala last year was almost non-existent because he wasn't around enough, considering the season that he had. But that was definitely the best one that he had together. He linked up great with Federico Chiesa, who obviously broke out this summer and in the second half of last year. So he linked up with everybody. I mean, it's Ronaldo. I mean, it's not like anyone that you could get that he's not going to link up with.
But just summarizing from that, then, from what I've gathered, he seems to play better with, sort of technically gifted players around him. Is there anyone from United that you've seen particularly that matches that sort of archetype of a Dybala or a Chiesa? Because in my mind, I'm thinking Jadon Sancho is probably the ideal player for him. But is there anyone else that sort of sticks out?
Oh, well, I watched United. I watched your first game where Pogba and Bruno just ran the show for you guys. I think that Ronaldo might have been looking at that and salivating at the mouth of thinking about the balls that Bruno Fernandes could send over to him and the amount of assists that he's going to be able to get. I think that link-up play is going to be big for him. I think that when you got a guy like Bruno who could send in a ball on a dime and set you up really well, and as well as Pogba, who's an unbelievable player, he did not have that at Juventus. I think that will be refreshing to him. He did not have ball-playing midfielders who could really serve him on a weekly basis. It's just the truth of it. Juventus's midfield has been its weakest spot in the past few years. It's been the thing that's crippled them on many occasions. Bentancur, Rabiot, Ramsey, at times McKennie. Like they're not bad players, but they're not at the level in terms of their attacking style. They were not the type of players that could put Ronaldo in great positions to get assists and goals, obviously. Locatelli, who came in, could have been that guy, but we never really got to see them together. So I think that the players from Man United that he's looking at is Bruno and Pogba.
Certainly. Well, I'm going off my own script here as well. This is just a question that's sprung to mind. Obviously, we've seen, at the Euros particularly, Ronaldo has struggled to link up with Bruno Fernandes quite to the level that you'd expect. Do you think that might be a problem going forward, or do you think the Euros was sort of an isolated incident?
Yeah, so I can't speak to him. I like to just speak about what I know, and I didn't watch enough of Portugal at the Euros to say between Bruno and Ronaldo. I think my idea is that great players know how to play with each other, and there's so many different aspects to football, and I know we want to look at it black and white because it's easier. If you just look at the stats, like, oh, it didn't work out this time, so it doesn't mean it's going to work out this time. But that's just not how football goes. And in different environments, and when you're feeling good, and when you have certain players around you, maybe Bruno didn't have the types like Pogba around him or other players around him that allowed him to play in the best position that he could possibly play in. So I would say that it's definitely not going to be something that's going to be a problem. I mean, you put Ronaldo as a center forward and you're serving him all game long. I can't see how it's not going to work out.
Hopefully. Well, a big issue that we've sort of come across in the British media, now we've discussed how sort of clueless they can be at times, but there's a question over his personality because it gets portrayed that he's still this, sort of self-centered player that wants the individual awards as much as he wants the team awards. So from his time at Juventus, how was that personality conveyed? Is he like that, or do you think he still has a lot to offer as a team player?
Listen, I don't think that the two are necessarily mutually exclusive. I think that Ronaldo, rightfully so, he knows he's the best player in the world or one of the best players, wherever you want to fall on the argument between him and Messi, and he knows what he brings to teams. He's demanding. He's just that type of player. There are times where he got frustrated with players around him at Juventus, and if you look at it objectively, it was rightfully so. There were some times where the players that he was paired with weren't up to the caliber that he felt like he should be. And I think that with Ronaldo, no one ever is going to be, but specifically at Juventus with the players that were around him, they were too far below and they didn't always read his movements that he likes. At times, it could be a problem. Absolutely. I would agree with that. And there were times, and I'm saying both sides. I'm giving Ronaldo a lot of love because I think that he was incredible. But at the same time, there were times where he was a little bit too negative and you did feel like he was just playing for himself. I understood his point because he really wasn't paired with good enough players around him to be able to see the maximum of potential, in my opinion. But I think that he can in that right system. And it is important to note, if you watched his final game with Juventus against Udinese, where he came in and he scored what would have been the 3-2 goal that Juventus could have won the game. It was called off because of VAR. He didn't start that match, which is what started all the rumors that he was going to be leaving. On the sidelines, he was coaching the team. I mean, he was on the sideline giving Bernardeschi instructions, giving the young guys like, hey, you should be doing this, which made me think, like, number one, I was thinking, all right, maybe he's not going to leave because he still seemed involved. But number two, it just reiterates the type of professional that he is on that top tier of pros, that he makes everyone around him better, whether he's on the field or whether he's off the field.
Certainly. Well, I'll sort of combine two questions with one because we want to get the audience involved as well. Got a question here saying, so what went wrong with him in Italy? He went for the Champions League. Now, I'm going to factor this in because, in my opinion, it was due to the poor team and probably management around him. But then I'll tie that in with, why did he leave Juventus? Was it because he failed to win the Champions League? Was it because he didn't see a stable team around him? What was the reason?
Yeah, so there's a number of factors, with the Champions League. I will admit, I'll agree that for sure, when Juventus got Ronaldo, when fans got Ronaldo, the idea was Champions League. That's a thought. Fortunately, football is not just made on money. Not the team that spends a lot or buys the best player always wins. Otherwise, it would be boring. Of course, it is becoming more and more like that in the future. The way that I see it, and this is my analogy for the way that I've described Ronaldo's time at Juventus, which has been phenomenal from Ronaldo. Juve bought a Ferrari, but never took it fully on the highway. It was always holding him back a little bit because the players around it, financially, Juventus put themselves in a big struggle where they paid this enormous salary. They paid over 100 million for him, and they weren't able to put the proper pieces around him. And I think they sort of thought like, hey, we got Ronaldo. He'll be able to do it himself, which it doesn't work like that in football. We know that. Like, you have to have good guys around him. He never had. If you put Ronaldo in Juventus's team in 2015, which had Vidal, Pogba, Marchisio, and Pirlo as the midfield, Juventus wins everything. I mean, I would not bet my life, but basically to that extent that Juventus would win the Champions League because the only thing they were missing was that Ronaldo. So it kind of felt like with Ronaldo, they took a step forward, but then they took 2 steps backwards. And that's kind of like the balance of that. So he did go to, obviously, Ronaldo's ambition is to win the Champions League. And in my opinion, that is why he left Juventus now. I think that he was looking at the team and he was like, this team, realistically, is probably not going to fight to win the Champions League. Whereas Manchester United's team is more built and would probably go further in Champions League with me. Can Juventus win Serie A? I think that Juventus probably would have won Serie A if Ronaldo stayed. Now that he left, I'm not so confident on that. But I don't think that the ambition to win in Champions League was there. And I think that he just made a calculation. It's simple. Ronaldo does not, of course he cares about the money, but the money is not his motivation. His motivation is, I have a couple more years left. I need to put myself in the position to win best. And I think Manchester United provided that more than Juventus did. And that's why he left. Just to wrap up, one last thing. You can say, some people say that Ronaldo failed at Juventus because they didn't win the Champions League, but that also lacks to represent the 360 degrees of what football really is today. Whether you like it or not, it's more than just what happens on paper. It's also about the marketing that he did and the brand awareness that he brought to Juventus. He elevated on social media and the amount of I never saw Juventus jerseys in the United States. When Ronaldo signed for Juventus, everyone is wearing a jersey now. So those are like the little things that, maybe, yes, you didn't win on Champions League and that could be considered, not great, but they still won in many different aspects thanks to Ronaldo.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually going to ask a question about his impact off the pitch later on, so that'll be a good point to come back on. But obviously, we've spoken about his time at Juventus. We've spoken about him leaving. So I want to talk about sort of right now the player that Manchester United are getting. Now, United fans will be used to this explosive winger who has a dynamite of a right foot and can beat a man with skill and pace and power. How stylistically has he changed? Because he's going to have adapted to stay at the top level for as long as he has. So what sort of player are United getting now?
Yeah, he's totally different. He's not that player. I used to watch him at Manchester United, and obviously you guys are the experts, and I leave that to you. But I remember a winger that liked to dribble, that loved to beat his man. He almost got off more on crossing the ball and dribbling his men more than goals. And now he's just a goal-scoring machine. Like, the guy lives, breathes to score goals, period. That's all he cares about. Games almost start 1-0 when you have Ronaldo on the pitch. That's how I always felt with his time at Juventus. The guy likes to stay inside the box. He loves to get in on headers. I don't know how many headers he scored at Manchester United, but I'm sure it's way more now. That's what he loved to do. And he realized, and I remember watching an interview with him when he was at Madrid, and he talked about his transition from being a winger at Manchester United, where he thought that was important, whereas he realized the way that I help my team most is scoring goals. That's what I'm best at. So I need to focus more on that. And that means being closer to the box. It means being inside the box, putting myself in that position to be able to score, because that's what brings my team trophies. It's not so much being on the wing, tricking your player out and scoring goals. There was a lot said about Ronaldo too in Italy that, he can't dribble his man anymore. He doesn't have that. I didn't see that. Of course, it wasn't like at his Manchester United days. The guy's 36 years old. While he still looks like a 25-year-old, he's human being. I still saw him dribble his player, and he likes to do a little bit of that, but he's just a much more effective goal scorer now rather than his time at United 12 years ago.
Fair enough. We're going to get goals then, I think it's fair to say. Well, we saw that, didn't we, with his 29 league goals, even for a player of Ronaldo's height and standards. It's still a remarkable tally, isn't it, especially for a then 35-year-old. But yeah, you briefly touched on his key strengths there. What would you say goal scoring is now his key strength then? Just his poaching ability inside the box?
That's number one. That's number one, period. I mean, the mentality that he brings can be, a close number two, but I think goals are there. You just felt the confidence. You knew that at any moment, even if it was the last minute of the match, he was going to get that. He was going to put his, and the mentality is a good thing to touch upon as well. One of the best moments that he'll have and the Juventus fans will have in their memory is the match against Atletico Madrid, where they were going into the first round 2-0 down. Atletico Madrid's a tough defensive opponent, and the game comes home. It goes to the Allianz Stadium, which is Juve's home, and Ronaldo scores 3 goals, and Juventus overturned this deficit to Atletico Madrid, who was seen at the time as no way Juventus is going to come back. I mean, Ronaldo completely changed the mentality of every single Juventus player. He was breathing the idea of having revenge and coming back against Atletico Madrid. And that was probably one of the highlights of his time at Juventus, was that game against Atletico Madrid, because it was simply unbelievable.
Yeah. We've always known he's had that sort of personality about him, hasn't he? He's a natural born winner. But listen, we've got to talk about the actual impact and playing time he'll have at United. Obviously, there's a wealth of attacking talent there now. He is obviously still a very good player, but his legs, whether they're definitely still there, but they're on their way out, I think it's fair to say. How much of an impact and how regularly do you expect him to be able to play at United?
I mean, listen, the Premier League is definitely more physically demanding than the Serie A is, which will definitely take a toll on him. But I mean, I know Cavani is up there, and I don't know the exact number of games that Cavani is playing, but Ronaldo is a superhuman of a player. While he can't play, every single match, he's going to play most of them, and I'm sure he has the ambition to play every single one. The times that he was on the bench for Juventus or wasn't starting, he was never happy, and he always wanted to go in there. The guy barely gets hurt. So he's always around. I think that I have no problem. I mean, I was watching ESPN. They were talking about Ronaldo beforehand, saying that he's not going to be able to keep up in the Premier League, and it's too physical for him, and it's demanding. For me, I don't know if you curse on this channel, so I won't curse. But that's absurd. It's like simply ridiculous to think that that's what's going to happen to Ronaldo. I think for you guys, it's unbelievable. It's such a signing. It's amazing. Also, you have a good youth. Like, you have nice young players. You need that mix of experience as well, and a guy who's going to elevate the players around him. I know some people think, oh, he's going to take time away from the youngsters. Yeah, but how about learning from Ronaldo every single day? You know how much it's going to help the young kids around him? It's going to help them exponentially even after Ronaldo leaves.
But you've actually brought me nicely onto my next point about his impact off the field. Now, we'll start on the training ground. And maybe it relates a little bit on the pitch as well. From what you've seen of him, obviously United have a problem where sometimes it looks like there's not much chemistry between their wingers and their forwards, and their attack just seems a little bit disjointed. Do you think Ronaldo has the ability to sort of get the best out of everyone around him still?
That might be the third quality, the best quality that Ronaldo has. I mean, I saw him make Bernardeschi look like unbelievable at times for Juventus, which is amazing. He elevates every single player around him. And it's not only from the pitch that you see that. Just if you just listen to what some of his teammates have said about him, they speak for himself. You know, like him or not, whether you are a Messi fan or Ronaldo fan, you can't deny that. Okay, so you could debate who's better, right, between Ronaldo or Messi. But in my opinion, you can't debate who makes their teammates better. If you gave me a bad team and you said, put either Ronaldo or Messi on their team to make them better, I choose Ronaldo every single time because I think that he makes collectively the team better. Now, if you threw Messi into a team that's unbelievable, then maybe you have a different story. But Ronaldo elevates every single player around him. I remember a story, and I can't remember which player it was, which Juventus player it was, but they were saying that they were excited for the first day that Ronaldo joined Juventus, that they got to training like an hour before. They're like, oh, it's going to be amazing. Ronaldo's his first day. I'm going to go to training 1 hour before. I want to be there right away. And they said Ronaldo was already in the gym working out for an hour before they got there on his first day. Like, I mean, that's Cristiano Ronaldo. The first one to arrive, last to leave. I'm not breaking any news. Like, everyone knows this about Ronaldo, but he continued that same exact path on Juventus.
Yeah, it's one of many stories we hear, isn't it, about Ronaldo turning up an hour early. It seems like a daily occurrence to him, which speaks volumes about his mentality, even at his old age. But the other side of it was, I know you very briefly touched on it just a minute ago, is how he can impact the youngsters. Now, the United fans in particular have this sort of great hope that Mason Greenwood can really learn off Ronaldo in terms of being a striker. Obviously, he's got two of Europe's best strikers in the last 10 years to learn from in Cavani and Ronaldo. From what you've seen, does Ronaldo have the ability to sort of mentor youngsters? Has there been an example of that at Juve where youngsters really benefited from just being on the same team as Cristiano Ronaldo?
I mean, yeah, tons of them. I mean, you could look at a lot of them, they grew up with the idol of Ronaldo. And, you look at De Ligt, for example, who says that, going up against Ronaldo every single day was a challenge and it only made him better. You could look at Federico Chiesa, who says that, they're motivated by seeing Ronaldo in training every single day. Ronaldo also became friends, which just shows, the type of person that he is. Ronaldo even became friends with Juve's third keeper. They became best friends. His name is Carlo Pinzoglio, he's not a youngster, but he's not a player that ever really played much minutes. And they became best friends because Ronaldo always wanted to train after practice and he needed a keeper. So he would bring Pinzoglio and he would just like rip shots on him after practice all the time. And Pinzoglio was the only one that would stay afterwards because nobody wanted to, accept shots from Ronaldo. And they became friends off the field because they said that he was the funniest player and they vacationed together. And they have a whole funny love story. He even went to go get a hair transplant at Ronaldo's clinic. That's how deep their love goes. But it just goes to show you that Ronaldo, I mean, talking to a third string goalkeeper, you might think, oh, come on, Ronaldo's too big for that. some people in the media would make it out to believe that that's Ronaldo, but it's not true. He's always just been an open guy, an accepting guy, and somebody that has his ability to be open to everyone around him as long as they're willing to try hard. I think that's the only time that you ever find a problem is if somebody's not trying harder than they should, then that's where he would lose you.
Yeah, I think that's where sort of he sometimes gets mistaken for a selfish person as well, because he is constantly demanding the best, and sometimes that comes across as quite aggressive towards his teammates. But I completely agree with what you've just said. I suppose the final question I have then for you, and it's a very big question, especially for everyone listening and watching, is Does Ronaldo turn United into genuine title contenders?
Listen, so I'm not a Premier League expert. I don't watch enough, and I definitely need to, and I'm going to be following your channel a lot more. And maybe we could get into a group chat where you could start getting me educated in that, because I want to start watching more games. But I think 1,000%, the second that I saw Ronaldo go there, I said, Man United are going to go further in the Champions League, and they're going to compete for the Premier League. And of course, there are many factors. Like, there are many factors when you join Juventus. You know, it's your coaching, it's everyone around him, but he increases your odds of winning. My best friend growing up is a Manchester United fan. He's a diehard Man United fan. Him and his whole family, they're Irish, but they're huge, huge, huge supporters of United. So I've grown up with them for a long time. And I'll be honest, my buddy, you know, he was saying the day before when he was linked to go to Man City, he was pissed. He was like, if he goes to City, he's terrible. You know, Messi is way better than him. He's a traitor, this and that. Then once he signed, he's like, oh my God, we got the best player in the world. And I told him, and I think he feels it. He brings that edge to you where you think that you could do more and you could achieve more, and you believe in almost the impossible just because of where he is. So he's only an added value to you. Of course, Manchester City is a strong team, and I'll give them the respect that they deserve. And their bench is pretty ridiculous. And when you're going in a long season, your bench will certainly make an impact. But I think considering the signings that you've brought in with Varane, and then you look at your midfield where Pogba is going to excel with Bruno, and then you have a guy who's going to always finish the ball when he gets service. You have one of the best teams in Europe. In my opinion, Man United are going to be a serious threat for a lot of teams.
I certainly hope so. It does make me laugh, the thought of the process of watching him almost go to City. I think I don't know if it came across to America or not, but there was a lot of videos circulating Twitter of United fans burning their Ronaldo shirts and just sort of jumping the gun a little bit. But yeah, it's good to see that reaction was sort of universal. Well, in that case, is it fair to say we've recruited a new United fan if we do teach you more about the Premier League?
Listen, I'm open. I'm open to it. I have no affiliations currently, but I do want to start watching the Premier League a lot because it's a great league and it's a lot of fun, and it's very exciting. And I appreciate also, you know, United was always I always lean towards, I liked United because of Fergie. For me, he's the classiest, he's a gentleman in every regard. And United and Juventus always had very good relationships. And I was fortunate enough to meet Sir Alex on a few occasions. And he's truly just one of the most kind people I've ever met in my life. And I admire him as a coach. So yeah, absolutely. Come on, let's do it. If you give me some information, we start this group chat. That's it. Maybe I could become a United fan.
There we go. Everyone, we've brought another one to the Manchester United family. Just consider we've had two Juventus recent legends, both in the same team, in Paul Pogba and Cristiano Ronaldo. So if that's not enough to change your mind, then I don't know what is. But we'll wrap it up there. I know you're a very busy man. You don't have all the time in the world. So a massive, massive thank you for joining us, Marco. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Anytime, James. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe and like it up, James. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot of exciting content with your new Manchester United that you have this season.
I certainly hope so. And you heard the man. Be sure to like and subscribe. A massive thank you, as Marco said, to everyone who joined in the comments. We had some great comments, great discussion in there. So, make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you later.